How are we doing, everybody, and welcome back into the SFS channel. My name is Gavin, and today we've got one of our quicker episodes of the week, as with just one more contest left to go here for Week 9, a standalone game between the Pittsburgh Steelers and Chicago Bears on Monday Night Football. We're going to take a look at 5 Week 10 early waiver wire targets and must-add players for this week. These are players' names you want to have rostered as we approach Week 10 action, so obviously put in those waiver claims and submit those here early on before it's too late and we forget about that. So, with that being said, we're not going to waste too much more time. Drop down, give today's episode a like, and click that subscribe button. If you're new around here, let's hit the intro and get straight in to our first must-add player here for Week 10 action. Alrighty, here we go. So today, one of my favorite waiver wire targets for this week is Elijah Moore, a high upside wide receiver in this New York Jets offense. Now, I say high upside because I think the floor on a per game basis can still be considered to be a little bit shaky or a little bit non-evident here. But what I love about Elijah Moore is what we talked about all throughout the draft process this fantasy season. He's an explosive slot receiver who can add a field stretching element out of that position that not many other players in this league can provide in that slot role. And he does that here for New York. Had a huge breakout game, 7 receptions on 8 targets for 84 yards and 2 touchdowns. He's got 2 TDs in his last 3 games. We love Elijah Moore's skill set here at SFS. He's a very dynamic, very explosive player. There are some things to put into context and to analyze on a deeper level. Corey Davis was out of the lineup for this game, so it freed up additional targets. And we also have a quarterback carousel going on right now in New York. Zach Wilson's out with, I believe it was a PCL sprain, if I'm not mistaken. You've got Mike White, the GOAT himself, who in his first career game had 400-plus passing yards, and his football and jersey are now in the NFL Hall of Fame. He gets injured, something with his finger or wrist early on in that contest, left in the first quarter. Josh Johnson comes in this game, and they get absolutely mopped all over the field by the Colts. They're down huge. What was it? 42-10 was the gap at one point, I believe. Josh Johnson rallies late, gets them up to 30 points, and Elijah Moore was able to put together a pretty convincing outing as to the upside he has here. But like we said, no Corey Davis, who's arguably the top target in this offense, the top pass-catching wide receiver for this team. That makes a big deal. You still got Jamison Crowder there, and Keelan Cole's making some plays as well. But I think overall, for a career-long stretch, the upside that Eli Moore has here is the highest of any player on this team. I believe he's the most talented player at the wide receiver position on this roster, and the Jets would be fools to not get him more involved and to continue passing him the football, finding plays, drawing things up just for him because of the difference maker he can be for this offense, regardless of who's at quarterback. And playing that slot role makes him very, very valuable to this offense and to fantasy leagues because at most often, outside of the tight end or running back positions, he's the pass catcher closest to the quarterback. And when you don't have an elite level passer yet, now I know we all want to crown Mike White that because the dude's freaking awesome, but we don't know if he's going to be the starter there long term. We've got, again, a quarterback mess. We're all jokes here at the SFS channel, but we're seriously high on Elijah Moore the rest of this season. Russell Gage for the next must-add player here for Week 10. Russell finally did something noteworthy here, and he's had a couple of games where he was kind of scratching the surface to be fantasy relevant. But for the most part, based on the expectations, the hopes that we had for him in the preseason and in the draft process, he's been a major bust and disappointment for fantasy teams this year. As a player who was seeing a lot of involvement in 2020, that dropped off. But with Calvin Ridley now stepping away from football, he was placed on, I forget the name of the list for player exemption, but basically it's like the injury reserve in the sense that he is required to miss at minimum 3 games. He served his first game this past Sunday. He is at least out for 2 more weeks. Could be more. We don't know what he's going through. We don't know exactly what the timeline is on that Calvin Ridley return date. But for the time being, Russell Gage is technically the wide receiver 1, and I put that in big quotation marks because you've got 2 other offensive weapons, if you will, that are probably in the front of the line as it relates to Russell Gage, that being Kyle Pitts, the dominant and athletically gifted tight end, and then Cordero Patterson, whether he's out of the backfield or doing the insane damage he did in the receiving game. If you watch that Falcons contest from this weekend against the Saints, he was doing some crazy things with the football. But Russell Gage is that next option. Again, just like Eli Moore, 8 targets, 7 receptions, 64 yards. Again, 2 more weeks at least without Calvin Ridley for Russell Gage to come in here and continue to prove that he can separate at the wide receiver position. Might be a flex level player in some deeper leagues. Brandon Bolden, this one might be a priority add depending on the news we get out of Patriots camp the rest of this week. This was going to be Ramondre Stevenson on the list for today's video because of the work and the success he had, over 100 yards from scrimmage against the Carolina Panthers. He was by far, the most impressive back in the Patriots backfield for that Week 9 game. Damien Harris, I was a little frustrated watching the TV, and I was upset for Ramondre Stevenson because he had like 60-plus scrimmage yards, moved the Pats all the way down the field as a rusher and receiver, gets them down to the three-yard line just for them to sub Ramondre Stevenson out of the game and give Damien Harris, who was having far less proficient numbers in the game, the goal line touchdown. That was frustrating to me, but that's the case. It's over and done with. Poor Ramondre, they're both out with head injuries. So that's how Brandon Bolden gets thrown into the mix here as a must-add player, because if they can't go, you're looking up at next man up mentality. Wow, we are really jumbling our words up today for our must-add players video. But Brandon Bolden, you've got yourself a Bill Belichick offense with a great offensive line. They move defenders out of the way with their run blocking fits and their run blocking zone schemes. This is a very, very good group up front. And Brandon Bolden's a player who has had some successful fantasy outings this season despite being a non-starter for this offense. He's got 2 8-point fantasy contests, including this past week against the Panthers, in addition to another game against Tampa Bay. He's been doing a lot of work as a receiver as well, and he's also got a 16-point outing against the Jets. So a player who is a veteran in this league, can get the job done. Don't expect crazy numbers from him if he happens to get the starting role next week. If both Harris and Stevenson aren't able to go, J.J. Taylor also might be sprinkled in this offense. He was inactive for Sunday's game. All right, next up here, Rashod Bateman. If you have not added the rookie wide receiver from the Baltimore Ravens to your roster in any of your fantasy leagues, what are you waiting for? This is one of those players who has league-winning upside as either, hopefully your team's flex play down the stretch here, but maybe your wide receiver too in more desperate situations. I will say he does have significant target competition in what is primarily a run-first offense. But Rashod Bateman's skill set and the utility he can provide is so exceptional. In the 3 games that he's been healthy and available for this Ravens football team, he's got 6 or more targets in each of those 3 contests. He was the first-round pick for this team for a reason. He is going to be a significant force in this team's passing attack the rest of the way this year. 6+ targets, again, every contest, 8 targets here this past week against Minnesota. The one play that really, in particular, sticks out to me is on a big 3rd down. Lamar Jackson was scrambling out to his right, throws back across his body, and Rashod Bateman makes a tough contested grab, picks up the 1st down. Very, very good work from him. He can separate, he can run his routes, he can stretch the field. He's a do-it-all type player for this offense, and as a very, very strong talent, he's going to show up and make plays all over the field when he has a quarterback like Lamar Jackson that can get him the football. And then Jordan Howard here, back on the train from last week. We had him as a must-add. And lo and behold, he outproduces Boston Scott. Who would have thought? Jordan Howard gets cut from the team twice. He's a talented back, you guys. I'm telling you, he's been a workhorse back in his career previously with the Chicago Bears. Being a Green Bay Packer fan, I've seen a lot of Jordan Howard. He is a tough, gritty football player who always finds a way to get positive yardage and to run through defenders and get, again, forward progress. 17 carries, 71 yards. And that big ticker here is the goal line carries. He's the physical back. He's the larger player. Boston Scott's a very capable back himself, a very uniquely talented player. But Jordan Howard just provides a level of physicality and size on the goal line that Boston Scott just can't. And while Jordan Howard didn't outpace Boston Scott by a mile, when Boston Scott's not getting involvement in the receiving game, as he did not last week, this is what sets Jordan Howard ahead, because I expected him to get those more consistent goal line carries over a smaller back who I quite literally think is 5'6". So Jordan Howard going forward here until Miles Sanders returns. This is the guy I want in my fantasy leagues. He doesn't have elite upside, and his floor isn't amazing either because of the fact that he's not catching passes. But when he puts together these steady 60 to 70 yard rushing performances and finds the end zone, you're looking at a solid 12, 13 points, and that can get the job done in desperate RB2 situations, which I know a ton of people are in right now, because when you look at the landscape of fantasy leagues right now, there's so many injuries to critical players. Some players just aren't producing numbers at all. It's become a very, very tough world to find productive RB play with how pass-heavy the NFL has become, with how minuscule the numbers of true workhorse running backs are. You're looking for points in production wherever you can get them. If you're in a standard league, Jordan Howard's the jackpot. He's only rostered right now in 8% of ESPN leagues, so something that needs to rise up this coming week. I believe in Jordan Howard. I believe in this Philadelphia Eagles rushing attack. Ironically, now that Miles Sanders has been pulled or injured, he was not pulled, but now that he's out of the situation, it's like a light went off in Nick Sirianni's head, and he's like, oh, I wonder if we ran the football, maybe we could stay in more games. And they inevitably came up short, 27-24 against the Chargers this week, but they stayed in that contest. They're a balanced football team, and they look a lot better when they keep the ball on the ground. So Jordan Howard moving forward, flex level to lower end RB2 numbers is what to expect. But at a position of such need, such scarcity, running backs are must-adds whenever you can find production in that facet of fantasy. Alrighty, there you guys have it. Those are our 5 early must-adds here for Week 10 fantasy action. If you've got questions regarding your individual leagues, drop those down in the comment section below. I'll do my best. Eric will help out as well to get to as many of those comments as possible. But with that being said, thank you guys so much for watching. I will see you in one of the other 2 episodes we've posted today in addition to this video, so go check those out as well, and I'll see you guys there. Peace out.